We are through 3 weeks of Legacy Leagues action here in the Summer 21 season. We're here to break it down for you on the Week 3 postgame show. And Week 3, we were talking right before we went on air, featured some close games for the first time really this season. 4 games decided by 9 points or less, and there's only 12 teams, which means 4 of the 6 games, more than half, were decided by single digits. Let's break them all down for you here on the Week 3 postgame show. My name's Joey. I'm joined by Logan, Jose, and Kyle. Doing the names used to be the hardest part of this show, but now they show up right on Zoom, so it's nice and easy. We used to do it in person, and that was the hard part, because I know your guys' names, but I would stare at you, and in the heat of the moment, I'd draw a blank, and I'd call you guys the wrong names. But I'm joined by the crew. We'll get to them in a second. But first, let's start with, let's start with the big guns, and then we'll get to kind of the second really, really close game that I think shocked a lot of people. And then we have an upset even, too, to get to. So a lot to break down. Let's start with Good U and the Rhode Island Warriors. Good U escapes. I walked over after getting smacked by the Duyes boys, and I walk over to court 3, and it's like a 2-1 3-point game with like under a minute to go. I'm like, hold on. We just talked about Good U and them being, right? I mean, I know Kyle was here last week and get a head nod, but being a title contender, I mean, he's on the podcast, like, Good U's legit. And I mean, maybe that says something about the Rhode Island Warriors, but they win by 3 after an even fourth quarter, 14-14. So a close game throughout. I know that. Let's go to Kyle first on this one. Nick Messier leads the way, which is even a little strange for Good U from what we've seen from them. But, I missed this game. Kyle, give me what happened in this game and why it was so close throughout.
Simply, it was just good defense all around. The two of the top players on Good U didn't really shoot that well, 27%, 44%. And both sides really were fouling each other. They weren't allowing themselves to get into a, fast offense because, as you saw with Good U, they really prosper on the fast transition. So very slowed game, defensive game, a lot of rebounds, and it just came down to taking advantage of the missed stops, and that's the reason why Good U won at the end of this.
Yeah, and we can go to Logan. I didn't mean to add myself there, but that's all right. Let's figure this out. Sorry, Kyle. See ya. Let's go to Logan. Rhode Island Warriors. I know you've seen a little bit of them, but even if you want to touch on them and what you saw from this game.
Free throws for Good U was very good. Other than that, it was huge defensive battle. Good U did get off to a good start, outscoring them in the first quarter by 3 points, but it really just was all them from there on out. Even in the third quarter, they outscored them 23-19. Like, it's just, I can't really sum it up any better than that. They played very well.
Awesome. Yeah. And I think, definitely Good U, a lot to say about them being able to sneak out a close win. Let's make sure we give the Rhode Island Warriors some credit, right? I mean, a team, we're going to talk about them at the end of the show, a 1-2 team, but as we've seen, a team with a lot of talent, and they just hung with one of the 2 remaining unbeaten teams in Good U. Maybe should have won. We don't like to play that game, right? Where shoulda, coulda, woulda, but, was in that game and a couple plays away from defeating Good U. And so, shout out Rhode Island Warriors as well. We're going to talk about them in a little while.
Well,
let's go over. Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, the RA Warriors were literally just one possession away from winning this game. Unfortunately, it was a big 3 by Good U with 1 minute to go, which actually sealed the deal. If they had stopped that 3-pointer being made with 1 minute to go in the game when that timeout was called, they actually would have won that game. They were very close.
Yeah. Yeah. And that, sometimes it is 1 or 2 shots here and there. And so, shout out Rhode Island Warriors 1-2, but, one of the couple 1-2 teams that we'll talk about on who can make a deep
Still
run.
A very good team.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. And they're definitely going to be heard from again. Let's go to court 1 and we'll get to Jose in a second, but the Mambas in Sin City, the closest game from week 3, a 1-point game. It was a 3-pointer that the Mambas were down 4 with no time left. And so realistically a 4-point game, but this, still counts. It's a 1-point game, but a very close game and a game that, did go back and forth into the fourth quarter. That's for sure. Again, a couple plays here and there was the difference, but Jose, Sin City, led by Trey Gallo, another, different name. We had the week 2 player of the week and Yariel Rodriguez, 15 points on 5 of 11. So, still was there, but Trey Gallo, Tony Gallo kind of took over in this one. And what did Sin City do to beat the Mambas?
Well, to be completely honest with you, Sin City did a really good job of just keeping that lead. Even when the Mambas tried to make a run, these guys came back and made shots. It was a close game within 5, but they valued their possessions. And when they needed to make a shot, they made a shot. Even when the Mambas had little runs and spurts to where it looked like they might have taken over the game or taken the lead, Sin City came back and responded and kept that league and stayed level-headed.
Yeah, for sure. And we're gonna go to Logan on all these games. His first post-game show. We're gonna put him to work. Where are you from?
I am from Indiana.
Indiana. So they,
Sullivan, Indiana.
That's right. We'll just use the cliche. They know about their basketball in Indiana. Duh.
Yes,
we
do.
hear that all the time. But you saw this game and on Snapchat with the highlights, and so you were saying before we came on, like, you couldn't believe the Mambas didn't win. So yeah, go ahead.
They had me shocked. The Mambas had 3 people score 22 points, and then 4 people total in double digits. I feel like they could have pulled this one out, but Sin City, they were just fantastic. It seemed like in the highlights, it was all Sin City. Just watching through the Snapchat stories, it looked all Sin City throughout the whole game. I really never doubted Sin City. The Mambas hit 15 threes, and it is really, really hard to even that out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but fantastic basketball from both of these teams.
Yeah, for sure. And just touching on the 3-pointers really quick before we get to our kind of big upset from Core 3. It seemed like in the fourth quarter it was pretty clear, and we can get even a head nod from Jose in a second, but it was Sin City kind of running their offense and getting to the rim, I think is pretty accurate in the fourth quarter, versus the Mambas coming down and relying on 3-pointers, which they made a lot of them, but it was like that kind of going back and forth, and they didn't make enough to get the win, right, Jose? Agreed? 3-pointers versus kind of slashing.
Yeah, yep, 100%. Sin City really pounded the rock inside the paint, used their size, and took advantage of that. And the Mambas just couldn't find an answer to just keep them outside the paint. And the Mambas, they did make a lot of threes, but again, they had a paint presence, defensively and offensively. So defensively, even the Mambas getting to the rim was not as easy in the second half. In the first half, they got to the rim pretty easily and it was pretty evened out. But the second half, they could not get to the rim, and their 3-point shots made up for it, which kept them in the game. But for the most part, the interior presence that Sin City brought in the paint, defensively and offensively throughout the game, but mostly in the second half, is what eventually kept them up and eventually let them win that game.
That's right. And yeah, I think that's a good spot to leave that one. I don't want to wait too much longer. Stampede get their first win, and in a shocking way, if I must say, they take down the Orcas. And you want to talk about Good U and the Rhode Island Warriors being a slugfest, drag it out free throw contest. Not so many free throws here, I don't think. A good amount for Legacy League's action, 21 combined between the two teams, but a slow, drag it out defense, like hard to find offense in this game. Final score of 48-41. We see that in college basketball. We don't see that in the Legacy League. That's usually a halftime score, as a lot of you guys know. But hey, Stampede get the win, a 25-point fourth quarter, huge. And Kyle, besides it being slow and not a lot of shots going in, how was the Stampede able to get their first win in week 3?
They were simply able to make the big 3-point shots and layups and post moves in the fourth quarter with about 3 minutes to go. It was unbelievable. I thought this might have ended as a tie go into overtime, because both teams were just missing a lot of shots. Because the Orcas were just on fire last week. I think, didn't they play against you last week?
Yep.
Yeah, they one of your teammates who was working with me said that they were killing you guys.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm. And now to see that they only shot 26%, that just blew my mind. How just in the matter of 1 week, everything just went off. And same with the Stampede 30. This was a very sloppy game offensively, and defensively it was great, getting a lot of rebounds and stuff. But it took Dan Heston and Todd French to hit a few big threes to get the Orcas to lose. Wow, it was unbelievable. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, and let me just say we're 1 week too late with all those missed shots on the Orcas. So thanks, guys. We could have used that in week 2. God damn it, they didn't miss. But Logan, I don't know how much you've seen about the Orcas, but we can toss it to you. And even the Stampede, we can kind of go a little more quickly now. And even the last 3 games are going to go a little quicker. But what stood out for you in this game?
Wow. I really did not see the score of this game. To be completely honest, I was looking at the box score. I looked and I was like, oh my God, Stampede pulled that out. And
Yeah.
I was really shocked. Wow, it was a really sloppy game. 3-point shooting was not there. Shooting in general was not there. Definitely a lot of defensive stats, rebounds, a lot of blocks. Stampede, 4 blocks on 1 player. Wow.
Yeah.
That's a huge lopsided fourth quarter though. That's hard to come back from. 25 to 11. That's hard to come back from for sure. Wow, I really kind of stopped watching this one, stopped paying attention after I saw the Orcas highlights, and then Stampede really surprised me. I'm not gonna lie.
Go ahead, Kyle.
I was going to mention just the large turnover rate. 13 turnovers for the Stampede and 6 for the Orcas. And usually a team that usually doesn't make as many turnover mistakes as one team does. Usually the team that has the most loses most of the time. In this instance, we were able to see somehow the Stampede won, and it was just because of that fourth quarter magic, as I say.
That's right. And let's get to, a lot of the people who play on the Stampede used to play on the Werewolves, know the Werewolves. There's a lot of connections there for you guys who follow the league. But it is the Werewolves. They also get their first win, if I am correct. Yep, the Werewolves improved to 1-2. They take down Ball Don't Lie in week 3. And Brian Heston did his thing. And it's funny, just to kind of sum this up before we can go to Logan first this time. Also some more court 3 action. But Brian Heston was sitting out, and Ball Don't Lie made a little run and kept us interesting, whether it's in the second or third quarter. And he walks over and goes, well, that was fun. Time to go back in, because that's what this kind of came down to. Brian Heston, 25 points, 19 rebounds, 8 of them offensive, 4 blocks, 2 steals, the 4-time defensive player of the year, I believe, showing, what he does and how he's able to impact a game. But Logan, the Werewolves get that first win. Ball Don't Lie, still 0-3.
Yeah, the Werewolves played very well. They did not shoot the 3 ball very efficiently, but everything else was pretty solid. They shot 41% from the field and 32.8 for the Ball Don't Lie. And so, Heston was fantastic as always. He's played great all season long. They just haven't been able to get those wins. He's starting to look like more of an offensive player of the year as well as a defensive player of the year. And I like that a lot. Yeah,
he's a very consistent player. And we'll go back to Kyle here. But Heston put on a show and kind of shows how he can impact the game on both ends of the floor.
Yeah, for Will Watkins also made a big contribution too. As much as we want to praise Brian Heston, Will Watkins also contributed a great amount too, especially with his 4 rebounds and 3 assists and 50% shooting, of course. So he was a very reliable person. Grant Rosenberg, though, on Ball Don't Lie.
Yeah,
I got to give it to him, though, being able to put up 33 against some tough – he was getting double teamed at the end of the game to avoid any late game comebacks. And that whole second half, just tightly guarded and still able to drop 33. I got to give my hats off to him.
Yeah, and so let's move on. I know we saved what was the week 3 game of the week for near the end, but it is Lob City now 2-1, getting that second win, knocking the Ozone Boys to 2-1, taking them down 90-70. And now that's how the tiebreakers work. So we're going to start getting into all of that stuff and how important these games become, because there's only so many games and you can't play every team. And so if you finish with the same record, that first tiebreaker is head to head. And so if these two teams finish with the same record, the tiebreaker for the seeding does go to Lob City. So we'll see if that, turns out to be a huge thing. But they take down the Ozone Boys. It was a huge second quarter, a 13-point margin. And that's kind of, between the second and third quarter, 47-27 was the edge for Lob City. There's your 20-point difference, right there in those middle two quarters. And that's what, they're able to pull away and keep it at that distance. Jose Mercado, I mean, I know you guys will talk about him, but huge game from him, and, 32 and, barely missed. But this was kind of Lob City getting back to having all their players after, losing last week to the Duyes boys. We can go to Jose. And so, I'm not sure how many times you've seen both of these teams. The Ozone Boys appeared to me to not have the size at times to match up with what Lob City likes to do between Nuri and Jose, and even Josh Smith and Colin Burns. We can name their whole team at that point. But what'd you see, Jose?
So at first, based off of the first quarter, I was very surprised. Ozone boys were missing a couple of their players because what they usually do, they run a platoon substitution, which is what is known for Calipari and Kentucky back in the day, where they sub in 5 out, which is great, fresh legs, and they come in and they give good production. So they were shorthanded in that department, only had 3 subs, so that played a factor. But they did do a good job in that first quarter, sticking to their guns and making shots, staying consistent, staying within the flow of the offense. But as you said, that size within that second and third quarter took over. Jose Mercado could not miss. I was watching this live and recording it. I could not believe some of the tough shots this guy was making. He was on fire. And Colin Burns, he came in. He obviously got hurt within the third, I believe, but he came in and gave a good punch off the bench. Yep. The thing was Colin's mobility, taking out Noah Berg on Ozone Boys out in the perimeter, taking advantage of that, getting a quick 7 points within the second, I believe it was the second quarter. And that was a huge factor, stretching them out. And then after that, Ozone Boys they could not get consistent shots. They had a stretch of 5 minutes where it was just consistent misses of bad shots, no easy shots at all. It was that was the downfall for them. Tough shots.
Yeah, and it was a lot of Colin Burns just going right by his man, which then turns it into a 4-on-3 type of advantage. I know it's in the half court, but that's separate from all the fast break points that Lob City was able to get, and just easy ones. Logan, quickly, you can touch on Lob City and them improving to 2-1.
Lob City is just, I really doubted this team. They played Sin City in week 1, and I was really hesitant about this team because it did not look like they played very good defense, but they have really turned it around. They've really showed me that they are a lot stronger team than they actually put forth. And Mercado is a very, very good player. It seemed like every other highlight was just him, and it was absolutely unreal. This is another team. Lob City came over and they lost the turnover battle, but won the game. That's always a good plus.
Yeah, and Lob City, they will make sure you don't forget. They've won 4 of the 5 seasons of the Legacy Leagues in Rhode Island, and so yeah, they've been there, done that. They always bring it, and they're going to be a really, really good team and a hard out come the playoffs. Speaking of champions, the defending champion Duyes boys take down the Halfway Crooks by 22, and didn't even know we outscored them in the second quarter, so that's cool. But then a huge third quarter, 29-17, too much to handle. And I'll let you guys talk about this one. I'll be quiet for now, but John Kutu and Vinny Volpe, combined for 48. Go ahead, Jose. What'd you see from, the defending champs?
So based off of that first half, the Halfway Crooks, they played it really good. It was a close game. They tactically, they were sound. Defensively and offensively, they stick to their plan in that first half. Brandon Sweeney taking advantage of St. Patrick's out in that perimeter, using his quickness, getting to the rack, getting basically the offense was flowing through Brandon, and it kind of opened up shots for everyone else on the Halfway Crooks, and it got into a nice flow. It was good, but then Yeah, that third quarter, man. John is an energizer, man. He will get his team energized from blocks to rebounds to maybe shooting a three and assist. He's just all over the floor. Like he was phenomenal. Like Vincent Volpe was phenomenal as well, but you can make the argument that John is just as good. And he came out there in that third quarter and he sparked that run and it opened up the game for DJ boys and halfway Crooks just couldn't stop the bleeding after that after keeping it so close in the first half.
Yeah, and even just really quickly, because I lived it, unfortunately, but the first quarter didn't, Duyer's boys, even it says there, right, 27-18. So almost tried to open it up in that first quarter, and it was the size of the halfway Crooks that kind of kept them in it for the last 5 minutes of that second quarter. And unfortunately, there's only two big guys on the halfway Crooks, so you can't do that all game. And then in the third quarter, turnovers and steals and a couple threes is what changed the game for the Duyer's boys. Too much to handle. Yeah, Logan, any real quick thought on that one?
The Crooks only turned the ball over 3 times. Was that all in the second half?
Yeah, there was probably a few more turnovers than that.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the DJ's boys are just they're a fantastic team. Vincent and John are both very, very great players. From what I've seen so far, they've both played good in all 3 games so far. John seems like a do-it-all player, and I don't believe y'all could just keep up with that.
Yeah.
No offense.
Yeah, that's all right. That's all right. This is how it works. It gets awkward when my team loses. It's more fun when my team wins, put it that way. So the Duyer's boys and Goodyear are the remaining undefeated teams. We have 4 teams at 2-1 that we talked about, and most of them won this week that are at 2-1, except the Orcas and Ozone boys. But like I mentioned to you guys before we started the show, we're going to end it with some talking about the 1 and 2 teams. So we did already talk about a lot about the Stampede and the Rhode Island Warriors. We have the Werewolves, who also got their first win this week, and the Crooks on a 2-game slide after winning week 1, but they are also at 1 and 2. So there's those 4 1 and 2 teams. Let's get Kyle back in this. Kyle, which one of those do you like best to win a playoff game? And right now they'd be playing one of the much better teams. Now that's how the playoffs work, but which one, of those 4 1 and 2 teams do you like best?
For me, I want to say the RI Warriors. I really enjoy because this was a playoff-like game that they just had to play against Goodyear because Goodyear's going to be one of those top teams right now. They're undefeated right now, and Goodyear's going to be playing one of the lower-ranked teams. Then it's going to get to that middle area in the next round where it's going to get iffy. RI Warriors, I believe, can pull off an upset. It could be against Goodyear, it could be against Lob City, it could be against even the Duguay boys. But it was a good test for them to see how they played against. It came down to the last possession, and they fought all the way through for 40 minutes. I believe this team is ready for the playoffs. They just need to keep doing what they're doing.
All right, we'll go to Logan. Which one of those teams do you like best?
I like the Werewolves the best. You never doubt a defensive player of the year. They have the offensive ability. They also have the defensive ability. I feel like they can stick with any team in the league. And I really, really enjoy their chances of winning at least 1, maybe 2 playoff games.
Dope. Jose?
Yeah, I have to agree with Logan, man. Just for me personally, players win playoff games, and Brian Heston is that dude. Like he's just so like consistent. Every game that I've watched, it's just he's the type of guy that could push them over, and if other guys are hitting shots, I mean, because there's no question mark with Brian. So, and if his other teammates follow through with him, that I think they could sneak in a win. But I will say this: halfway Crooks can get one. For me, the only question is the consistency throughout all 40 minutes of the game. That is my only question for the halfway Crooks.
Jose gets half a point. He sucked up. There you go. You guys all missed your chance to suck up. No, very, very good analysis. What I will say about the Werewolves 2 seasons ago, which feels like forever ago because of how long we were off, but they made the finals and pushed Lob City to double overtime. And so that's how close they were to winning it all, which is very, very crazy to think about. And I believe at that point they were a 4, 5, 6 seed, 7 seed as well, making a huge run. And so, yeah, that's how things work here in the Legacy Leagues. Duvier's boys a 9 or 8 seed last year, winning it all. And so, or last season, I should say. But guys, we hit the 30-minute mark. I think that's enough talking for us, but good job breaking down week 3. Week 4, if you want to give me a second, we can even preview some of those games, but we get Lob City and Good U next week. So talk about,
that'll be a game.
Yeah. Talk about 2 teams that, we expect to make a deep run. The Orcas and the Ozone Boys should be a good one. And let's, renew the rivalry. The Halfway Crooks and the Werewolves have played every season we've had Legacy League. So that is back as well. Guys, thank you very much. Good job. And we will see everyone else very soon.